Welcome to the PROUST Questionnaire.
35 questions giving us insight into what makes creative people tick.
Hi, Caroline. How are you?
I'm excited, Uli. This is such a fun conversation, the one that we're about to introduce. So talk to me a little bit about Ross Bleckner, the famous painter who we got to talk to in his studio on Long Island last summer.
I mean, I'm thinking back to this day, and we actually were so lucky we were able to go out to the Hamptons, where he lives in this gorgeous, incredible house on a place that used to be the de Kooning estate. And Ross has been a painter, of course, well known to a lot of people, and was one of the very first artists and painters to speak out about the AIDS pandemic and crisis and make that not just part of his activism, but also his art. And he has really opened up a path, I think, for a lot of people to say, I can be an artist and I can also be socially engaged, and there's no opposition whatsoever.
Yeah, no, that's correct. And I think we forget now in 2020 how controversial it was in the beginning of the AIDS crisis for people to come out publicly and speak about it, to become activists on behalf of people who were diagnosed with HIV, who were dying of AIDS. It was a terrible time, especially, I think, for a lot of artistic communities in this country, including the artistic community in New York City. And I'll never forget going to an exhibition in a gallery downtown in the early 90s and seeing some of Ross Bleckner's cell paintings, where, you know, it's kind of these writ large, they just look like these beautiful abstract paintings, but you realize that what you're looking at are you know, white blood cells or whatever kind of cells. They were gorgeous paintings, but where he was actually asking the viewer to really think about what was happening in America at that time. And now, you know, it doesn't seem anymore like such a shocking or unusual or non-mainstream issue to talk about AIDS. My husband, who has also been a guest of ours on the podcast, Paul Romer, often likes to say that he feels like we ought to be able to solve this pandemic, the coronavirus crisis, because we were able ultimately to address and kind of stanch the flow of deaths from the AIDS crisis.
Yeah, and in some ways, it's a really important connection. So Ross Bleckner was one of the people who just did not relent and did not give up and say this must be addressed. This is a crisis for humanity and not just a crisis affecting gay men. This has to be addressed precisely because it is killing people in our community. So we went to a studio in Sagaponack, which is in the Hamptons, I think, right? That's where we went. And it's so if people are going to join us for this episode now, it's a bit echoey because we're in this gorgeous, incredible space that actually Ross built for himself. It's his painting studio. And we really wanted to make a point to be in someone's space instead of taking them into a recording studio where you feel you're surrounded by technology and cold equipment. So we actually met his dogs and he served us lunch. And it was, in my memory, especially because we're in lockdown now, such a wonderful day to be in an artist studio in the Hamptons with you. Couldn't think of a better day.
Oh, it was just the best. That has to be one of the most special days that we've had on the PROUST podcast. And I remain so grateful to Ross Bleckner for having taken the time. And I think it's a big deal. I mean, to let, in my case, a total stranger, you knew him as a colleague from NYU where he teaches and where you teach, but to allow us into a place as personal and private in a way as the studio where you do your work, it was really, really extraordinary. And of course, I just wished that I could have walked away with any one of those paintings on the wall, and we'll never be able to afford any of them, but it was a joy to see them in situ like that.
Short of that, follow Ross Bleckner on Instagram. It's Ross Bleckner, Bleckner. The PROUST Questionnaire is PROUST.questionnaire on Instagram. I am Uli NYC, it's ULI NYC, where you can find out more about us and why the two of us actually got together based on our joint shared love of literature, and tell us where to find you on Instagram, where you also keep people informed on what you're doing.
Yeah, Caroline Weber 2020. So, and we also have a website, ProustQuestionnaire.net. So I hope people will come and find us in any and all formats. And now let's listen to our conversation with Ross Bleckner. What an amazing day that was.
First of all, Ross, thank you for being on the PROUST questionnaire today.
Well, it's my pleasure. I feel like I can do the best I can, although, like I mentioned to you in my email, I feel like, I teach at NYU, and I do a seminar, and I invite artists to come and talk about their work. And the thing, after a couple of semesters into this, that I realized is every artist starts out saying something different, which is that they never know what they're doing. And every artist in the end sounds exactly alike. They all
really?
know exactly what they're doing.
Really? Okay.
It's like a trope.
Yeah.
I invent as I go along.
Right.
I never have a plan. It just comes, I'm thinking, you've been doing the same thing for 20 years and you're saying you don't know what you're doing?
Right. That can't be accidental.
It's like, I want to laugh, but I kind of zip it up. And I want to say, that's what the person last week said too. And then I realized, I must do the same thing.
Oh.
We'll get
That's a level of self-awareness we love to have on this podcast.
We'll get to
Which is why I feel like talking about yourself or answering questions that even relate to the things that you prefer and like, which are about yourself ultimately, is like, how do you stop doing this eventually?
You may be surprised you'll sound different than other people.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna jump in and start you with the first question, which is, what is your idea of perfect happiness?
Well, actually, the quest for any kind of happiness, I realized in my life a long time ago, is a kind of a phantom, is a kind of illusion that just makes me very unhappy.
Okay.
So I don't think there's anything perfect about happiness, let alone anything that actually could be described as being happy. So what I would say is kind of, I'd have to lean toward my understanding of a bit of Buddhism to answer that question, and it would be the cessation of pain.
Okay.
To me, equals happiness.
Okay.
Noble truth.
Yeah. What is your greatest fear?
Well, my greatest fear is fears are things that are malleable. They're like kind of constructions in your mind, and obviously the whole kind of ideological and conceptual idea of a fear changes. What you feared in your 40s, you don't fear anymore in your 50s. My greatest fear is that I will not be able to finish whatever work I feel is in me that I began to do as an artist when I was in my 20s, because now I'm not in my 20s anymore. I'm kind of far from it, even though I don't feel far from it. But like the finite amount of time, I fear that I won't be able to get out if there's anything to get out, by the way. But I kind of believe there is still a little. Like, I haven't said it all. Other people might think I've had nothing to say, or I have said it all, but I don't think I have said it all.
Okay.
And I feel like I won't be able to say it all because my creative energy, which I've had a lot of, will start to wane. So that's my biggest fear. Like the kind of physical, slide that affects your creativity. Like, how much energy can you have for how long?
Yeah.
This is all a commentary on me being traumatized by just having turned 70.
Just turned 70?
Well, Mazel tov.
Yeah. Mazel tov indeed. My God.
Thank
but
you.
yeah.
You've made it to 70 already, so.
Yeah. It's
Which
better
is
than the
probably
alternative.
My answer's another question here.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope that having turned 70 is not the answer to this question, which is, what is the trait you most deplore in yourself?
Well, no, it's not turning 70. The trait I most deplore in myself is not being able to believe in all the things that I say that I believe in, including the things that I'm kind of a self-hypocrite. Like I say I don't want to compare myself to other people, but yet I compare myself to other people. I say I want to be honest with myself, but I know when I cut corners for one reason or another in my mind, or to get something done. I say I would never do something for one reason, and then I do something for the money.
Interesting. I see. And so you live with that kind of double register.
But I realize, that's part of what my work is. So I kind of, which brings us, I guess, it doesn't go right into that question. I mean, I try to let my work follow the dark and light of consciousness, and that's really kind of what becomes the subject matter of it. That kind of intersection where things come in and out of focus, where sometimes they're clear, sometimes they're not clear. So I don't deplore it.
Yeah.
Deplore is a very big word.
Yeah, sure.
But I always am amazed when I kind of like astounded when I hear commencement, all the idiotic commencement speech about speeches, like, in Oprah world, how you can fulfill yourself, how you can love yourself. And I always say, there's nothing wrong with a little self-hate.
That's the quote of the day. But that is interesting to hear you relate that to your...
I've always had that issue.
Yeah.
I've always had a degree of self-hate. And then the world pushes back at you.
Yeah.
That this is not acceptable, and I've always thought, well, why is that not acceptable? I'm actually working hard to overcome it, and that's what my work is. Like, I'm not proud because I am me, but I could make myself proud if I did something as a result of being me.
That's great. That's great. And just this idea, being surrounded by your paintings. We didn't say at the beginning of the podcast that we're in your studio, and this idea of things coming in and out of focus and the duality of light and dark. It's interesting to hear that you carry that around all the time, but it's not surprising that that's what you carry around if that's what your work is. So this again, unfortunately, because we're sticking to the text of the Proust questionnaire.
Fine.
Well, I have to use the word deplore again, but you can modify it as you like. In your answer, what is the trait you most deplore in others?
The kind of, now I used to deplore it on a kind of subliminal, almost tacit level. Now it's a more explicit level. The kind of self-delusional pathology that gives people unbridled confidence even though they have no reason to have any. Those people seem right now in this moment of time to be doing well, and that is kind of deplorable. Because like I said, it's a delusional self-confidence, not a real self-confidence. So what they've mastered is the art of deception, the art of being a con man, a con woman. Like in the case of the drug company.
Yeah, for sure.
With the blood. I forget her name.
Farrah.
Who copied Stephen Jobs.
Exactly.
Who dressed like who affected the accent of Stephen Jobs raised hundreds of millions of dollars. You know what I'm talking about? Theratos.
I just saw that documentary. It's fascinating. And you're right, it's such a case study of a pathology of our time, you know.
It is, it's a pathology of our time, and I deplore it so much because I feel like kids are seeing this.
Right. And
Kids are seeing that bullying pays off.
Right.
That lying, you know, just don't lie, tell a big lie. Don't retract it, repeat it. Don't apologize, say it again.
Double down, yeah.
You know, it's the kind of Roy Cohn syndrome.
Right.
Yeah. Which living person do you most admire?
Well, I admire, I've always admired people who kind of did public service and social policy and blanking on his first name, Farmer. I've always just thought he was so fascinating. He started Doctors Without Borders.
Okay.
Oh, right.
He's written books.
Yeah.
I mean, I admire. It's a hard question because I haven't actually thought about it.
Yeah.
I admire a lot of people, actually. I mean, historically, presently. I mean, I do admire Obama. I'm sure a lot of people would say that. You know, I mean, he looks so good, so gracious, and I mean, even now that he could, I don't know how he can't just be exploding at the seams.
I would be.
I mean, I actually think he should be more activist now. I mean, what is he has nothing to lose. He's not saying anything.
Yeah.
He's following precedent when precedent is being broken continually.
Yeah.
His name is Paul Farmer.
Okay, yeah. The Doctors Without Borders.
Yeah. I mean, I admired Matilda Krim a lot. I worked with her.
Oh, wow.
I admired Kofi Annan a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I love his energy. You know, it's a lot about the energy that people project into the world, whether their project ends up being successful or not. Mm-hmm. You know, you need kind of a critical mass of other people for a project to be successful. And sometimes the idea is just good, but ahead of its time. I guess, I mean, I used to admire people who invented tech stuff, but they're kind of coming under a bit of suspicion lately.
So good for society, right?
Alas.
We're going to move to the next question. What is your greatest extravagance?
I thought about that last night. I don't know what an extravagance means.
Like something you allow yourself that you think maybe you shouldn't allow yourself to do or to have or to be.
An artist.
Being an artist, that's a good one. Okay, that's a great answer. That's a really good answer.
Fantastic.
You can go to the next one.
All right. What is your current state of mind?
My current state of mind is well, kind of. I think it has changed a bit. It was angry and upset and anxious, and now I'm calming myself down. I've kind of tried to remove myself from the discourse that kind of always surrounding our lives. You know, I stopped watching television. I look for sources of news that aren't your standard sources.
Yeah.
I mean, but unfortunately, you know, that I always end up going too left, my sources of news, so it's like I feel like I shouldn't be going down that rabbit hole either.
Right.
So I don't know where to find the balance. So trying to find the balance in my life and in my information and in my world. I've kind of moved out to the country to do the work. So, trying to do the work really and put everything aside. I always say I kind of feel like the most important thing you can do is go from FOMO to POMO. And I feel like I'm at the POMO stage. The fear of missing out to the pleasure of missing out.
Yeah.
It's nice. I like that. What do you consider the most overrated virtue?
In anybody?
In anybody, what people talk about, yeah.
Probably honesty. Because we're all made up of lies that we tell ourselves. I mean, because nobody really knows who they are. Everything is so contextual, and in a way I'm contradicting what I'm saying about the pathology of that, but also the sanctimoniousness of purity is I find very bothersome.
Right.
Because nobody has that. And in fact, that book that was just written, which I haven't bought, but I was gonna buy and read, which I heard a lot about and heard the speaker, which how to be an anti-racist. Was very interesting.
Yeah.
Because if you really inspect or examine who you are, you're all of these things. You're homophobic, regardless of the fact that you're gay.
Yeah.
You're racist. You're so many things, but it's not your fault. You have to re-educate yourself. The system, you are born into a system that your mind is shaped to be a girl, to be a boy, to be a white person, to whatever it is. And we're advertised to, since we're like 3 inches big.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot. You have to get outside of the system to even begin to re-educate yourself. You have to really be an Argonaut.
That's an excellent metaphor.
Point to
Yeah, well, and then the follow-up question to that, just in order of our questionnaire, kind of comes at a good moment. On what occasion do you lie? Or should I say on what occasions?
What occasions? I basically lie. You lie when you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. Artists lie all the time.
Love your work, that kind of thing?
Big lie.
Leave it at that. Okay, really. That's what they're not honest about that? I always thought they say that and mean that.
Yeah, one hopes. Yeah, loved your book, Uli. What do you
But what I always feel like saying is I like to get along with people, but what's so funny is every time you have a thought bubble in your head that is contradicting the argument, the discussion, even the compliment, you're lying. Like, I love your work. Oh yeah, sure. You've been doing the same thing forever.
Oh, no. And claiming that you had no plan. What do you most dislike about your appearance? Sorry, it's a weird question.
It's an okay question. I dislike what I dislike about my appearance the most is the fact that my father had a chin that went from his chin to his chest. So I hate whenever I feel like I look like my father in any way, I immediately start Googling plastic surgeon.
Okay, that's good.
I went to have an operation the other day on my finger.
Okay.
And the guy happens to be a great surgeon. I said, do you do necks?
Address my chin, my paternal chin.
Which living person do you most despise?
That's so easy.
Okay.
Donald Trump.
Okay.
And actually, the president of Brazil is coming in
Close second.
a quick second right now.
Yeah.
To say nothing of the president of Italy, the president of Hungary,
Oh, yeah.
the president of Russia,
Great Britain is doing pretty well too.
huh?
England.
And England.
Right, so we have a full slate.
Boris
Okay.
Johnson.
All right.
World leaders.
But the worst by far, in my book, is our president.
Okay.
What is the quality you most like in a man?
Their beauty and their intelligence.
What's the quality you most like in a woman?
Independence and strength of character.
Okay.
I really am attracted to very strong, independent women who are accomplished.
Which words or phrases do you most overuse? The things you say a lot that you're aware of.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
Okay.
What or who is the greatest love of your life?
What or who? I think actually my present boyfriend is, because he's so kind, he's Indian, has such a gentle understanding. He's like a lot of things that I'm not. He's not judgmental, he's accepting, he's calm, he's forgiving.
Lovely.
And my dogs.
Yes. Yay. Two very adorable dogs, by the way, to our listeners, little wire-haired dachshunds. Really cute. When and where were you happiest?
When and where I was happiest, well, there have been many times when I've been happiest, but it actually had to do with when I'm in my studio. I mean, I remember being in my studio like in early 90s, painting on a New Year's Eve, painting a painting that I really felt was beautiful. And year was turning, and I was in this really good painting, and that was the place I was in, and that's when I was really happy. And the other time is kind of like the cabin in Maine scenario, you know, where nothing is near you and you're reading and you're calm. And I have this perpetual anxiety. So whenever that is gone, that is when I'm in happiness. And the last time I was happiest was actually when I've been not doing psychotherapeutic things or dealing with anxiety and depression with pharmaceutical medicine. I've kind of switched over to plant-based medicine.
Oh. And
So I would actually say that I was very happy when I had my first Bufo experience. If you want to talk about that, that might be a whole other discussion.
Okay.
The Bufo is the venom of a frog.
Right.
That is administered by an experienced person. It's not a party, believe me. It lasts for 25 minutes, and it changes your perspective. Yeah. I thought it was 10 years of psychoanalysis in 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
wow. Wow.
And I laughed.
Be
And
careful what you wish for.
I know.
I'm thinking, what would 10 years of
Let's get
psychoanalysis
some of that,
do to me?
yeah.
I'm not sure.
well, that's why it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
But you realize, you know, it's an acceptance of who you are with all the shortcomings. You accept the shortcomings.
Yeah.
You're not, you know, I had to deal with the fact that I will now accept, some reason this came into my kind of psychic, my psychic plane, because of where I am and the art history of this particular area. I accepted the fact that I'm not Willem de Kooning, and I'll never be Willem de Kooning. And like, I was never okay with that before, but now I am.
Really?
Yeah.
Because of the frog?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
You know why? Because I saw myself from the cosmos, and I looked back, and I realized how little all of these things really are. That's so little, and our time is so short.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm worrying about?
You're not Willem de Kooning.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Who's not with us anymore.
who's not even with
There's
us?
also an ambition
It's
not to be
another-
Willem de Kooning.
It's like another time,
But you're
another
alive.
place,
Sure.
And you're
completely
alive.
different work.
Yeah.
You know, a down and out alcoholic basically, which I wouldn't want to be anyway.
That's right. Okay.
But the point being that, like those things change things. There's other ways to think. And that's what we're all looking for. When we're writing, or we're looking for portals out of our convention, out of our, default positions. We all have them. I mean, that's the great beauty of art.
Yeah. Right. Which talent would you most like to have?
How's about any talent?
Come on.
Swear to God.
Okay. Let's go to the next. No, I'm going to take you right to the next question. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be? Maybe it's the same answer.
Yeah.
No, that I would love to know how, I don't know if this is relevant even to my work. I would love to be able to draw like Rembrandt. Or, you know what? Even like David Hockney, I would take.
Okay.
I would take.
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
That's a tough one because it kind of goes back to I actually maybe it hasn't happened yet, but if this would be it, and it had to be it, I actually think my greatest achievement was the fact that I stopped the work I was doing when I was doing work in the early 80s, and I focused my attention because I felt like the world had broken apart, and I felt like as an artist you can't just not deal with it when the world breaks apart around you, because you are a part of the world. You're an artist, but you're also a citizen.
Yeah.
And I did paintings that referred to that break, and then I also realized that the paintings might express my feelings, but they might not be able to do enough. So I became an activist, more of an actual activist, and I became involved through people and helped start an organization that I was president of for 18 years called American Community Initiative Research on AIDS, which did a lot of very important work from late 80s till the early 20s, early aughts. Now it's part of GMHC.
Great. That's great. If you were to die and come back as another person or a thing, what would that be?
Well, since I always think I should get my ashes put in with a tree, maybe like an oak that lives for 300 years and hovers over a beautiful property where a great artist lives.
Sounds pretty good.
Where would you most like to live?
Actually, I'm very happy here in the Springs. I mean, I like to get away, but I like the East End of Long Island. I've always liked the East End of Long Island. I mean, if I had a choice, my second place to live is Rome.
What is your most treasured possession?
I actually don't treasure possessions. I have none.
Wow.
I mean, this Rajan gave me, I treasure this. It's a little kind of light.
Is it like, it's an
lantern.
amulet? What is it?
Yeah, it's like an amulet. It's a little necklace. And of course, my dog Julius and my dog Winston, but you know, I don't really see them as possessions.
Right.
I just kind of take care of them.
Right.
What do you regard as the lowest depth of misery?
Not loving your work. Not knowing what you want to do and not loving what you do. And then retirement is the second. Everyone I know who's retired is miserable.
What would be your favorite, or what is your favorite occupation?
Well, besides art, I think there's a few. Astronomy, journalism, any profession that is kind of boundary breaks, that pushes boundary, investigate. I always wanted to write, when I was younger, I didn't get around to it, but I did want to write a book about, like I.F. Stone, an investigative journalist, when there was very little room for that. And I was going to kind of write it, and I wanted to write letters between me and him, or me and someone like him. It kind of, him admonishing me for not being more in the world. Like, you're just in your studio, how do you know what's going on? Where he was on the front, he was on the case, he went out and investigated the lies, the fakery, the connery, and exposed it. So professions that have a level of exposure to them, which art does do as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just very different. It's not as literal, it's not as journalistic.
Yeah.
Right.
Fascinating.
What is your most marked characteristic, which we think means what do people perceive about you first? How do other people see you? What do you think that is?
Well, I only know what other people see me by comments that they've made, because I think that other people, friends of mine, think I'm a little skittish. I think that I'm very like, you know, I'm social in very small doses, kind of hyper-social. I like to get it all up. I could be very charming, very quickly, all at once, and then I'm gone.
That's it. All doses. Okay.
What do you value most in your friends?
Not telling me all that.
Discretion.
What?
Be a little discreet, yeah.
Keeping it to themselves sometimes.
Who are your favorite writers, if you have any?
Usually writers I'm reading now. You know who I love? Fernando Pessoa. I love reading it. The Year of Disquiet is a book that I find very hypnotic. I read a lot of the same books. I mean, I like Karl Lovengrad.
Oh yeah, you do?
I do.
Have you made it all the way through the whole?
No,
I haven't.
I made it through. You don't have to. What I like is that you don't have to.
Yeah.
I like a lot of nonfiction. I just read How to Change Your Mind by, he's a food writer. He's such a,
Michael Pollan.
Michael Pollan.
Michael Pollan.
Great book.
He's such a good writer
It
too.
was a really great book.
Neat.
It's, I think you change your mind by doing drugs. That's what that book says, right?
It didn't say doing drugs.
Okay.
It
So I have
was-
to, it's a Michael Pollan book.
It was not drugs. It was Plants.
Plant.
Okay.
Mind-altering substances. Okay.
You should read it. It's interesting.
Yeah. No, he's a great writer. I love Michael Ball.
Me too.
The other book I love. This is a book I love, poems by Max Rittberg. I like Edward Lewis.
Yeah. Edward Louis.
He wrote
Yeah,
a book
that's-
called, his first book I loved, it's or second book, no, it's his second book, new book called Notes to My Father.
Yes.
Fantastic, the little book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Year of Rest and Relaxation.
I just finally read that. Yeah, it's The Shrink.
Yes.
Do you love The Shrink though?
Rachel Kusk, Susan Sontag. This is a really interesting book that I read. It's a newly written Bible. The Old Testament was written by a synagogue in San Francisco, and it's the Bible written from a gay perspective.
Amazing.
It's actually a beautiful book. I mean, it has parts in here like for if you're involved with somebody who's transgender, for questioning, the prayers are in the Bible, but for renaming yourself, for a girl entering puberty, on being open to change, for taking an HIV test. I mean, this is in the Bible. I mean, it's kind of really interesting. On coming out of dark places.
Is this fairly new, this edition? When did that come out?
This came out about a year ago. For letting go of having a biological child, for donor fathers and surrogate mothers, for those without children. I mean, it even has a section that's very short, which I really love, for anonymous sex.
Who knew? The Old Testament, well, we actually did know it contained just about all of humanity.
It does, you
Right.
know? In the dark, strange place, our father Jacob encountered a stranger with whom he grasped all night. He never knew the stranger's name, yet their encounter was a blessing, which turned Jacob into Israel and made him realize, I have seen God face to face. May this intimate time with another person be an encounter with angels that allows us both touch and see the divine. In the name of the God of Israel, who created passion and who wove it throughout creation, turning strange places into holy ground and strangers into a source of blessing. Now that's the way the Bible should be read.
Oh yeah.
Powerful.
Huh?
Powerful.
amazing.
Beautiful.
Who is your hero of fiction, television, or film?
That's a really hard one. I don't really have any heroes.
Okay. We want to.
Which historical figure, if there's any, do you most identify with?
That seems to me so grandiose.
I think what it was.
Because it would have to be said, could it be
Cleopatra.
someone anonymous, which
Right.
historical figure?
Right. I see what you're saying. So you're already setting yourself up as.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mark Rothko.
All right.
Rothko,
All
okay.
right. Wow.
For the looking for light, for the kind of mildly apocalyptic and melancholic vision that he had, for the kind of searching against the odds for a oneness, not a God, but a kind of a oneness, an authentic sense of completion. That's how I see his work.
Who are your heroes in real life?
Oh, that's hard too. I don't think like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, who has heroes? What do you mean? People you...
Well, it may go back to what you were saying about, like, the guy who founded Doctors Without Borders, people you admire, basically. I don't know. Yeah.
Hey, there are a lot of people I admire. I mean, I love, what's her name, who should be the vice president. You know, I blank out on names at turning.
Who should be
Elizabeth
the vice
Warren? No.
The black woman in Atlanta.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris, yeah.
No, not Pamela Harris. The one who is not decided not to run.
Oh.
Stacey.
Stacey Abrams.
Stacey Abrams. I love her.
Yeah, Stacey Abrams, right. It's a hero, okay.
What are your favorite names?
Uli. What's your name?
Caroline.
Caroline.
Caroline. I love
You're
her.
being very much in the moment,
Right.
We like that. We like
it's
that.
the Buddhist in you.
What is it that you most dislike? Is there something you really dislike?
Yeah, I really dislike what's going on right now. There's a lot I dislike. I mean, you know, you could go on for a long time, you know, but I really dislike, one of the things that I dislike most is that I feel that I am kind of a relic of another time because I cannot be interested in the way information is disseminated. You know, I'm not good at it. My mind is not wrapped around technology. You know, like a kid who grows up now.
Of course.
Their minds are literally programmed around understanding. They have a different understanding of the way the world works, and so I guess what I really dislike that kind of obsolete feeling of the fact that I really kind of wish, even though, you know, I don't want to be sentimental and nostalgic, but I actually, a lot of nights don't pass Channel 13.
Right.
It's just too complicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone tells me, watch this series, watch it. I'm like, how many? Did I miss 3 seasons already? Like, where am I supposed to start? Then you go on to the cable part, and you have to click around on the letters.
Oh, yeah.
By the time I clicked around the letters, it's time to go to sleep.
What is your greatest regret?
A lot of regrets. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to regret, I think. You know, people who... I mean, I don't regret what I've done. I don't regret the path I've chosen. Actually, I'm very happy about that. You know, I forget, it was a philosopher, maybe it was even Freud, I mean, you know, but it wasn't. Actually, I might have it right on my computer. Nick Bostrom, who, sorry, it's Thomas Nagel.
Oh, really? He's one of my colleagues at NYU.
Is he?
Wrote a book called The View from Nowhere. Yeah. Philosopher. Right.
Yeah.
And why is it related to regret?
It relates to regret because secular philosophy, he's really interesting, I think. How do you reconcile philosophically the fact that what you want to do didn't turn out to be as good as you wished it would be? That's the idea of regret.
Yeah. Right.
That's what I think about a lot.
Realism.
Huh?
A certain type of realism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Acceptance.
Acceptance, right. How would you like to die?
not sick. You know, it's Israel Emanuel, Rahm Emanuel's brother, who's a doctor, did a really great article about saying after 75, you should not bother with any kind of intervention.
Oh. And start that as early as 75.
Just alleviate pain, right? He said you
Yeah,
shouldn't live in
yeah,
pain, but
but
otherwise
forget
don't
about-
do big life-altering
Forget
efforts.
about all that bullshit.
Okay.
You know, don't bother with the chemo if you get a diagnosis.
I see.
You know, you're going to have maybe a couple of extra years that are going to be misery. You're talking about quality of life.
Yeah.
So after 75, if anything, particularly anything I have a feeling with loss of memory, that actually scares me the most right now because, listen, I made it through the 80s, which is, that in itself is a great achievement as far as I'm concerned as a gay man, and the 90s. I would like to go out kind of, you know, with health, on the right psychedelic drug, where you feel at one with the universe, and you're not afraid, and you just feel like you're floating away, but in fact you fall asleep.
What is your motto, if you have one?
Keep trying.
I thought it was the pleasure of missing out.
No.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a much more workman's ethic. Keep trying.
Keep trying.
It's like Rodin was like work and you must work and
Yeah.
keep on working,
Well,
right?
yeah, because I'm trying. Do the best, you know. Get up tomorrow and try to do the best you can because, you know, the time is getting shorter.
Yeah.
So, like, don't waste it.
Yeah.
So it's keep trying because the time, you don't have that much time left. So whatever, however great I want it to be, I better like take my last stab at it.
We have another question.
Last
Caroline
one.
and I, this is the last question. If there's anyone you would like to hear answer these questions, do you have an idea? Who would you like to listen to? Who should answer the questions on the PROUST Questionnaire podcast? Anybody,
Yeah.
if we could get anybody, who would you like to hear from about these questions?
Gee, there'd be a few. I mean, people that are alive, right?
That would be easier. We do have a Ouija board.
Yeah,
and
we
can
could
try.
maybe have a seance.
I was going to
But
say maybe Susan Sontag, Cindy Sherman.
great. Yeah.
I'm thinking of artists. I don't want to think of artists so much, you know, because I could answer them for you.
I see. Really?
Yeah, because I know what they would say.
You,
They're too much about, you know, I've kind of turned off to the whole career trajectory thing.
Yeah.
I know what I have to do. I have to have some shows to keep my life going still. You know, I don't live off unearned income. I'm lucky and fortunate enough that I do well enough that I still can do that. But that whole thing of promoting yourself is it's a system that is so unsustainable to me. And when people do it, it looks silly to me now. And when I do it, I feel silly. It's like I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
yeah.
That's not to say I don't want to make great work, good work, or whatever work I make. But I do, but I don't want to deal with pretending this persona that I'm this artist,
Scare quotes.
in quotes, that's either good, great, important. It's all ridiculous. And so, and this is what you see when you're up in the cosmos. It doesn't fucking matter who's better and who's not. And that, in the end, unfortunately, because of capitalism, all the artists are stuck into this mindset that basically has to do with ranking. You know, I played it for a long time, but it's not something that's going to last in the future.
And you said earlier you were happy when you painted a painting and you thought it was beautiful. And that's an intrinsic and different way of looking at it, not because someone else.
You're ranking.
But as soon as you're out of the studio, you have to. You can't. I mean, if I were to be honest about my self-doubts, it's not a good career move.
Right.
A little dishonesty.
Yeah.
What?
A little dishonesty
Here
there.
and
Maybe. Yeah.
Well, we can't thank you enough for doing this. This was really, it was fun for us. I hope it wasn't as...
No, it was easy. I mean,
It was inspiring.
Unfortunately, I couldn't answer a lot.
It was inspiring, although I was hoping the motto would be relax.
I love keep trying.
Keep trying is a great
For
motto.
3 Germans.
I mean, that's the contradiction. You know, that's why I'm lying to myself. I've studied a lot of Buddhism. I've gone to a lot of retreats, and I'm trying to not try, but in the end,
Keep on trying to try.
in the end, you know what? I get up every day, and I'm trying.